And welcome back inside the Edger and James room here at the University of Miami. Joe Zagacki, Don Bailey Jr., wide receivers coach George McDonald on a big day for the University of Miami. The skill positions, the Hurricanes did great. Coach, you lost about 100 catches last year, but you brought in a whole bunch of guys to replace those 100 catches. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's an exciting time. I think the group of guys we got coming in are very dynamic, and they're going to be a special group, I believe.
Coach, one thing we noticed about them, they all got a little size to them. At least that's where they're listed.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. We wanted to get some guys that had a little length, whether it's long arms or the height. So we feel like we hit our profile on that one.
Coach, let's go through some of these guys. Let's start with Herb Waters. A guy who can run after the catch, return kicks. What was attractive about Herb Waters?
You know, Herb is a great athlete. He played quarterback his junior year, then he played more wide receiver his senior year. He's like a guy that can play in the slot, can play the Z, but also adds a lot of special teams value, and he can do a lot of things with the ball in his hands.
Coach, out of Leesburg, you get Damari Jones. That's an area that I know you had to fend off some competitors for Damari, but another receiver that looks like he'll help you.
Yeah, you know, Damari's the taller guy. He's about 6'4", so with Streeter leaving, he's able to play the backside X position. And as we did with Streeter, a lot of the jump balls, and you know, he's a great basketball player. He won the state last year. They're going back to try to defend it this year, so he has a great ability to go up and catch the ball in the air, which is something we're looking for.
I want to spend some time on that a second. You know, when you go to recruiting, you guys try to narrow your mistakes as best you can, and you take a guy like Damari Jones, and you mention the fact that he's been on the state basketball team. That also validates his skill as as an athlete. And you got to look for that. That's something that helps in the equation. Right,
and that's something that Coach Golden's real big about, is just checking the boxes and knowing exactly what you're getting. So in offense, and especially at the receiver spot, pretty much all the guys we signed we know exactly what we want to do with them, how they want to fit in our system. And it's helped that it's the second year going into the system, so we kind of saw, you know, what we did with Tommy Streeter, what we did with Travis Benjamin, what we did with Dorsett, what we did with Alan Hearns. So as you go out the next year, you're just trying to fill those spots. Well, Tommy left, and this is what he had success at. So let's go find two guys that fit that category and continue to develop into the system.
Well, John Tavis Carter is 6'4", right? 200 pounds.
Right, and both of those guys are great basketball players, and those are the things that we're looking for, just the jump balls, being physical, backside slants, and you know, at the end of the season, in the middle of the season, we had a lot of success just throwing the ball to Tommy one-on-one. So now we got two young kids who have, you know, these guys have excellent ball skills. So that's the biggest thing that was attractive to them, is just they have long arms and they can jump and they know how to go up and catch the ball at its highest point.
As an overall athlete, I think one guy that we probably haven't spent enough time on really through this whole process is the wide receiver slash whatever you want him to be, is Angelo Jean from Palm Beach Central High School.
Angelo's, boy, he's dynamic. You know? It's going to be a fight to see where he fits. I'm glad he wants to play wide receiver first. So, but he's a great athlete, and he's even a better person. You know, he's helped us recruit just like Randy Duke Johnson has this whole time, and I'm excited for Angelo to be a part of this class. But you know, whatever he is or wherever he's going to be, he's going to be a dynamic player.
Coach, you grabbed a couple guys, one on the defensive side of the football, Antonio Crawford, a corner who was committed elsewhere, and then Robert Lockhart was not originally committed to the University of Miami, and he ends up coming on board, and you got some help from a new Hurricane as well. But Lockhart presents some immediate help at your position.
Yeah, Lockhart, you know, he's going to be a little bit older when he comes in, just from his ability at Fork Union, but he was a dynamic player that when we came in last year, it was towards the end of the recruiting, so we didn't get a chance to really get to know him. So fortunately for us, he ended up at Fork Union, and we were able to develop that relationship, and he decided that he wanted to stay home and be a part of the Hurricane family.
Coach, I went to a high school game this year, and I looked out there and I said, oh boy, who's that guy? And it was Malcolm Lewis, because he jumped right out.
Right.
And I think of a couple of things with him. One, he's played in big games. Two, he's caught a lot of footballs in that offense up there. Don also mentioned being a clutch receiver, got the game-winning catch in the state championship game. And then you get his teammate Tracy Howard, and I think, and these guys worked against each other in practice for about 3 years.
In my opinion, Malcolm is probably one of the most underrated receivers in the state of Florida. I mean, I think he's a dynamic guy, and for our benefit, he didn't have as much publicity in terms of the national stuff like that, but I think he's really a special guy. And like I said, you look at him and you watch him on tape and you see him live and you see his body type. I mean, I think he's going to have a chance to come in, like all of them, come in and compete early, but I think he has skills that a lot of people haven't maybe gave him as much credit as they need to about him. But he's a dynamic player. Like I said, and I think that's the theme of the whole class is, one, they all can catch, they all can run, and they're all dynamic in different aspects of their game. So I think this class has a chance to be really special. Now I got to do a good job of developing them and all those things. But I think on paper and coming out of high school, this is one of the best receivers classes that I've ever been a part of.
Coach, you look at what you accomplished in the recruiting class, and you go to places like Louisiana, you go to places like Leesburg. Miami made great strides in the Tampa-St. Pete and in the Fort Myers area. But as you know, when you were playing college football, the University of Miami was built on Dave Broward and Palm Beach County, and you locked down the best of the best.
Right.
And that's very important from here on out.
Right. And you've been around Coach Gold. I mean, the mission is to lock down the county and then to go out and get the best players. And that's kind of the mission that we set last year, and this is our first true year of really implementing his style of recruiting. And it's important. We want guys that are local to come and grow up the Hurricanes. And I think that's representative in the groups that we got, from Dion to Tracy to Malcolm to Herb Waters. Now it's the next wave of guys who grew up watching these guys. Now they want to follow them, and that's the same thing that, you know, I think Miami's, like you said, has been built on, is just everybody watching the next person and say, I want to go where he went in the local community.
Coach, also, I think you guys did this research, and Don and I talked about it earlier. Dade and Broward County, of all the guys in the NFL, NFL camps, 20% come from Dade and Broward County.
Right.
What does that do for you, and also in terms of evaluating, and that has to probably reduce some of the mistakes that are made?
Well, I think the benefit of having such a great talent pool in Dade is that you reduce the mistakes because you know them. You know them from when they're 8th graders all the way up, in terms of just hearing about them and watching them through camps. And that's the beauty of being at Miami. I mean, ideally we can go to 3 counties and be home for dinner every night if that's what we decided to do, and still have a top-ranked recruiting class. So as long as, you know, Coach Golden's here and the guys that are here, we're going to be committed to recruiting the 3 counties and going out and getting the best players. But Coach wants to make sure that we know everybody in these counties, and we're making sure we're giving all those guys a fair look and development them.
And it's just not knowing them as football players. You mentioned you'll have a history on them as 8-year-olds, 8, 10, 12, however it'll be. You've got a long history on them, the family, and what they're all about, and that's as important as any aspect of recruiting.
Right, because, you know, it's not about just athletes. You got to be able to fit into the Miami, you know, mission and be able to be successful here at school. And I think our whole goal is to have guys like Randy Duke Johnson, the guy that's been 6 years old and he's throwing up the U in his optimist pitchers, to come in to today, and he's a Miami Hurricane. So if we can develop those type of ties in the community, I mean, I think we'll be able to recruit as many kids we can.
Coach, you have a great class of wide receivers, but something that will affect you as well is a great class of quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you had as much, I'm sure you had as much interest in the position and what Miami did at the quarterback spot as you did almost at your wide receiver spot.
Right.
You get Greg Crow and Preston Dewey, and then you go to Texas and you come up with Preston Dewey, and then David Thompson, local kid from Westminster Christian. Right. Great quarterback class.
Yeah. And those quarterbacks really help with the wide receivers, because as you know, you want to know who's throwing you the ball and who's going to be there. So, you know, having Crow and having Dewey and having Thompson, those are really big recruiting pitches just for Malcolm. Like, hey, you're going to have 3 top quarterbacks in. It's like, we don't know who's going to play, but you got 3 great guys. You already have Morris here and you have Ryan Williams here, so you'll never have to worry about a quarterback as long as you're here. You're always going to have someone to get you the ball. So that helped us in terms of getting the receivers, and just based on the quality of the quarterbacks we got.
Coach Richardson was here. He was talking about Duke Johnson, and he was talking to us about being a great running back. He said he can do more than that.
Yeah.
So what do you see from him in the passing game?
You know, Duke's a special player. You know, obviously his #1 ticket is going to be, you know, carrying the ball out of the backfield, but he's so special that you can motion him out, you can create matchups, and he's just a guy that can do so many different things. I mean, he's going to be a tailback, but he's going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield, line him up when we go empty, and it just makes us more diverse as an offense. I mean, I think it just gives us a chance to set a personnel group in, but then motion out and act like you have another receiver out there.
Coach, the class that you've produced so far at the University of Miami for the secondary, and in all seriousness, if you've got great corners that your receivers and safeties that they're facing every single day in practice, that's going to force them to elevate their game. So it was equally important for the offense to get a great secondary class in here as well.
Right, yeah. Coach Williams did a great job of loading up on the secondary. Like I said, it always goes back to the past of what Miami was about, and they always talked about practice was harder than the games. So now as a receiver, you come in, you got Deion Bush, you got Tracy Howard, you got Larry Hope, you got so many DBs out there. When you go to the game, you should have so much confidence, because now you're going against the best of the best, and that's how we're going to get better. And that's that's what the program was built on, and we're just trying to get it back to that point.
Another thing, and Malcolm Lewis would be a good example of this, and I know that Deion Bush, they pushed very hard for Tracy Howard
Right.
to make sure he's a Hurricane.
Right.
The coaches can do all they can do. The university will do all it can do with its reputation, but at some point, really, a lot of the closing has to come from the players that are also committed
Right.
in signing here.
Right. And it always comes back to the players. I mean, coaches do a great job of developing relationships, but the players know the players, and the players spend time with the players. And we're fortunate that we have really good players here that are good people, and we recruited a group of guys that are really good people, and they all came together. And the biggest thing that we go back to Dade and Broward is that all these guys grew up playing with each other or against each other, so that it's just, you know, not that they wanted to go as a pack, but they knew, if I go there, this guy's good, and I know we can be successful.
Well, they don't have to speculate on the quality of the class as well.
Right.
And like you mentioned, if they're playing against each other in the 115-pound league,
Right.
they've seen them and they know the reputation as well. And I think that that's one of the great attractions that you had in this year's class.
Right, and it's true, and I think the biggest thing with this class, especially with the local guys, it just showed a more investment and more faith into what we're building here. I mean, to get guys like Deion, Tracy, and Malcolm, when they could have easily just said, "Hey, I'm going,"
Anywhere.
they showed a lot of faith in us, and it's going to be rewarded to them, because, you know, we're getting these guys, and as you know, signing day is all the great excitement, but the next step is to developing them and get the product on the field and making sure they're doing it when the lights are on, and I think we have full confidence that these guys are going to help us, and they're going to be impact players, and we're going to develop them to the best ability.
All right, Coach. Great day for you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Appreciate
Wide
it.
receivers coach George
Thank you.
McDonald
Thank you.
joined us, and Coach is going to go to social media, right? They got more interviews.
We're just getting warmed up now.
Love
Just
We're
getting
going to talk to the fans next.
Year two is always
Okay.
better.
You're
All right,
right.
thanks a lot.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, so